Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome back to Mind Your Own Biz. My name is Alicia Yervis. I'm your host. And first, I just have to say, it feels really good to be back here, back in your earbuds, back on my microphone. After celebrating my first full year of podcasting, I kind of disappeared for a little bit. No big announcement. I just ended up taking a pause. Life was lifing. I've talked about that many times on this podcast, but I've just been through a really challenging couple months, personal ways, business ways, world ways. And before I go any further with that, I just want to acknowledge that, there are some really terrible things happening in the world right now. And there's injustice, there's violence, there's people who can't afford groceries, can't afford to pay their rent, can't feed their kids, people who don't have peace in their own homes, people who don't have homes. There is just so much happening. It's hard to avoid the headlines. You want to be informed, but at the same time, it's like you're so exhausted, and it can feel really heavy. And honestly, you guys, it can feel incredibly trivial to talk about marketing or business or solopreneur life and yay, girl boss and all that stuff when the world feels like it's on fire. And there were moments over the past few months where, like, I genuinely questioned, do I even want to show up and talk about my business right now? Um, who am I to promote anything? Who am I to say anything at all when so many more so much bigger stuff is happening, like so many more important issues are at hand. Um, but something that my therapist reminds me often is that two things can be true at the same time. So the world can be a nightmare and scary and uncertain and just, one thing after another and just horrific. And your work can still matter. There can be these terrible injustices happening and which is, horrible and just completely unfair and depressing and incredibly frustrating and demoralizing and just, horrific. And then there could also be people who do need your voice, your skills, your art, your talent, your services. And, the even just saying that is hard to say because it makes me feel like, really, Alicia, like, with today's headlines and everything happening, like this is what we want to talk about. For me personally, I feel like I can care deeply about what's happening globally and at the same time still find ways to continue building a business that supports my life, supports my people, and you can do the same thing. You can still care deeply about what's happening globally and causes that matter to you and, pay attention to what's happening in the world and you know, uh, put your values out there and still build a business that supports your life and your people. And so that like tension between those two things, that's really been part of this kind of murky season for me. And it's part of why I did need to take that pause, even though I didn't like plan on it, just kind of happened organically. Um, yeah, I just felt like I needed to. So after celebrating a full year, my first full year of podcasting, I celebrated that back in between November and December. I ended up just taking a few months off from it. And like I said, it wasn't planned, it wasn't some like strategic, oh, season two rollout. I just think that I needed some space from it. I needed some space from um, a lot of the quote unquote routines that I had in my business for quite some time. Wasn't intentional, just, as I paused on things, it got easier to pause on some other things. And instead of just kind of pushing through to stay on that schedule that I typically would have done, I really chose to flow. Flow, not force. And flowing took longer than I expected. So, it's not like I quit. It's just I've been thinking about a lot of things, thinking things over, mulling over some things. And I'm still thinking. I'm still working on what do I want? What do I want to build? I'm still reflecting on this. Um, and during that time, I just wasn't recording episodes. And taking things slow has kind of been teaching me a lot lately. As you've heard me say before, slow is still a speed. But I think now that we're digging out from these crazy couple of blizzards we've had out here on the East Coast, the snow and ice are melting. Spring is right around the corner, and I really feel like I'm warming up and I'm feeling more ready to get back into the flow of things. So to that end, I wanted to, kind of say that at the top. Um, a few weeks ago, for those of you on my email list or who follow me on social, I hosted a free Zoom event called WTF is this biz season? Uh, and it was kind of like just a spot for uh women to come together and talk about like, your in between era, right? Like that we're figuring things out. Like what's going on, first of all, I don't know. Secondly, what do we want to do? How do we want to change our business? What do we want to not offer anymore? What's working? What's not? All that kind of thing. And I almost released the recording of that session as a bonus podcast episode here, but there were other people in the room. Things got super vulnerable. Some of it felt, a little too raw to put out publicly, but I wanted to share some of the themes that came up during that talk with the ladies that joined me. And if those of you are listening, thank you so much for being there. It was a really great discussion, and I'm really glad that we were able to gather and do that. And I'd like to do more conversations like that in the future. But yeah, so I wanted to just share some of the themes and things that came up in that space because they felt too important to disappear. So couple bullet point type things that we touched on in there and that um some of the ladies, more than one, were saying and sharing. So we all still have big dreams, right? We we still want our businesses. Um what that business is or how it goes or how it works may change, but no one in that room was ready to walk away from their business. Now, if you're listening and that's you, hey, more power to you. It doesn't mean that you can't start another business, or it doesn't mean that, maybe it's just not for you. You're not a fan of it. You kind of you want the security of a paycheck every week. I am not going to hate on you for that. You have to do what's best for you. Um, and I would say if you are feeling called to quote, go back to work, and join the traditional workforce, I would just say, don't close the door entirely, to solopreneurship. If you still feel pulled in your heart that way, but maybe to be practical, you want that paycheck for a bit, don't close your door to it. You never know what can happen in the future. You've made money in the past, you could do it again. So if this season means, hey, you need to, go back to work for a bit, I send you all my love and support. It doesn't mean that your business dreams are over. But for the group that gathered on that call, we are not ready to do that. We still want our businesses. Um, we're just trying to figure things out because energy feels different. Like the energy that we have, number one, like what is our like output? What's our bandwidth that we're able to use and give? Not only give to our clients, but give to our business, you know? And then the energy of the world feels different. Energy of clients, students, social media followers, email subscribers, everything just feels different this year. To that end, focus feels so much harder. Now, you've heard me talk about ADHD before. That's something that I struggle with. Focus is already a tall order for me. Um, but I have my hacks, I have my ways to, kind of wrangle myself and do that, but it's felt a lot harder this year. And the ladies were sharing that as well. ADHD or not, it's just, like I was saying in the beginning, when there's all these fires happening, when your focus and your energy is pulled this way and that, it's like things fall on the back burner. Things slide, things get buried, and then 2 weeks have gone by, and then 2 months have gone by, it just happens. Also, motivation doesn't necessarily look the way that it used to. Um, and, some folks were sharing about, well, I could, if it was a project I was really excited about, or it was a paycheck I was really excited about, or a new idea I was really excited about, or maybe a client that they were aspiring to work with, and they're really excited about that, and um, things it just I think we're all realizing how um short life is, and what are the things that truly light us up? What are the things that make us bounce out of bed in the morning? What are the things that really bring joy to our heart, to our soul, to our mind, to our family, to our business? And I think we're all kind of like reflecting on that. Um, so yeah, there's just like kind of, we were all talking about this sense of being between like versions of yourself. And it's not about like giving up, it's just figuring out who we are now, reflecting on who we've been and what our business has been, and then what we want for the future. Um, and it doesn't mean that, we've failed or whatever. It's just we're evolving. And I'm like so in that season with you and with the ladies that join me on that call. I'm not just like facilitating, these conversations, like I'm literally in it with you. And I've really been asking myself some pretty big questions lately, because of that feeling of life is short. How old am I? Hold on, I have to do math. 27. I I'm 43. I'll be 44 in July. And I've had my business now for 8 or 9 years, and it's like, you know, the kind of work that felt energizing to me in 2017 when I started my business isn't necessarily the same uh kind of stuff now. Like the things that energize me now are not necessarily, those same services or those same packages or products. And so I've been asking myself, what does feel energizing right now? What kind of transformation do I actually want to help my clients and my students and my audience create? Um, what kind of experiences and containers do I want to run? Because I'm not the same person I was 8 years ago. And my business doesn't have to be either, and I think that uh many of you out there can probably relate to that. Maybe you've been in business much longer than me, or maybe you're just starting your business, or maybe, it's a year or two old and you're already thinking about things you want to change or add or remove. Like, I think it's totally normal. I'm very proud of my business, Alicia Yervis Creative, established in 2017. Um, and yeah, I am so proud of the projects I've worked on, the client list I've built, the students that I've welcomed, the audience that I speak to. Um, I'm so happy about that. And I thank all of you for being part of it. And I kind of feel like some of the things that I offered in the beginning, that experience feels maybe complete. Maybe I don't want to offer some of those things anymore, like I'm kind of feeling like the door is closing or I'm ready to close the door on certain services or certain um, kind of departments of my business, if you will. Some things I've already stopped altogether. Like if you haven't heard my very first episode of this podcast, go back and take a listen to it. You could hear about my background and how I got started in this business, why I wanted to open this business, coming from an arts and theater and design background. Uh, and one of the main pillars of my business at the time when I opened it was social media management, running businesses, Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, etc. I stopped doing that a number of years ago, for many reasons, but it was just something that I fell out of love with, even though it was one of the main pillars of launching my business. I used to teach social media marketing classes on behalf of some of the theaters that I worked at. I was teaching other businesses how to utilize this new tool called social media, which was brand new at the time. And social media is an excellent tool, but so much has changed over the years. And as my business grew and as I layered in other product services, had some new dreams and things like that, I let go of that. It was very tedious to do. It was very time consuming, and it became, even though it was fun to be creative and find those creative hooks and graphics and conversations and engagement and all those kinds of ways to grow new audiences and market the businesses of my clients, it just was leaving not much time to grow my business. Um, and so anyway, I let that go and I started pivoting into um, teaching social media marketing through some of my content strategy courses and digital products and some of my workshops and things like that. And that was a much better fit for me at the time. In addition to offering brand design services, website design services, offering these virtual one-on-one empower hour sessions, which I still offer, kind of strategy sessions where we can work together, brainstorm together on stuff. I also had like a uh, monthly marketing assistant package that I was doing. And yeah, I've changed a lot. I've offered, I've listed a lot more things onto the Alicia Yervis creative menu. And then I've taken a big red pen and slashed through some things. And then I've taken, you know, kind of a gray pen and maybe dulled out some of the things that I didn't quite remove yet from the menu, but I don't really promote them, and I also flip-flop back and forth with like, okay, I want to add all this new stuff. And it's like, that's not necessarily the answer either. Because, okay, where have you been successful in the past? Where have you not only been hired and been paid, but what did you enjoy doing? What did you really love doing from those projects? So I guess what I'm saying is, in this very messy way, and thank you for bearing with me, is that I have a lot of curiosity about what's next for me. And I also have this incredible discomfort of not having like a clear headline for it yet. I don't have this fully formed plan. I don't have some polished announcement. I just know like something is metamorphosizing behind the scenes, and that's not instant. It's quiet. It's definitely more internal before it's visible, and it takes time, and I'm letting it take time. And as someone who struggles with a lack of patience, this has been really hard for me, you guys. Like, I am not a patient person. That is why meditation is hard for me. Um, and I was sharing this in my last episode back from December when I interviewed my friend Marnie Penning. We talked about ADHD a lot. And one of the things I said was like, ADHDers, like we expect if we're trying something new, we expect to be like amazing at it, like on our first attempt. Um, and so I do have like this lack of patience with figuring it out. and what do I want to do? What do I want to offer? What do I want to say? And so I just feel like I talked about this a lot in the Zoom session with the ladies. Like I just feel very like it feels like destabilizing. I feel like a little lost, a little I don't feel like a failure. I just feel like unsettled. Um I feel discomfort for sure. And I feel like I'm stretching, which is a good thing. Like I want to stretch. I feel like, I mentioned this earlier, like we're not meant to be the same business or person that we were several years ago. And you've always hear me talk about how I believe that you are your brand. When you are yourself, you will find your people. Um, and when you put your unique, true, authentic personality out there, it lights the way for those kindred spirit clients to find you, the people who truly get you. And by the way, in this age of AI, it's here, it's not going away. Um, in this age of AI, there's never been a better time to be yourself, to be your true, authentic self. And so, uh, by by putting that out there, like I'm being myself and telling you guys, like, hey, I don't know what the frig is going on. I'm going through something. I'm figuring it out. Things are changing. I don't know what it means yet. I don't have some big announcement. Uh, but I want to kind of just pull the curtain back and say that I'm going through this change so that you could be part of it. You could see it as it's happening, as maybe my content starts changing, my emails, maybe my podcast guests. I don't really know yet. I'm just kind of saying like, hey, something's coming, something's happening. And yeah, that stretch is happening. And I don't quite know where I'm gonna land just yet. So, as I mentioned earlier, this season has been all about choosing flowing over forcing. And in real life, that has really looked like baby steps, which again, I am not a patient person, so that is hard. Uh, but sitting with uncertainty, um, just kind of like letting some ideas breathe instead of just rushing to package them, which is maybe what I would have done in the past. Like I would get a spark of an idea in the shower or something, and an hour later I'd publish the sales page or send out the email or whatever about that product or that event or that service or whatever. And now it's just kind of like, okay, let me like sit on this a bit. Let me think on this before I, you know, feel panicky and have to launch something. And that's really hard. Like, one of the ladies who was on the call, she's a friend of mine, and we had been emailing after the Zoom session, and she's super encouraging. She knows who she is if she's listening to this. And I was just saying how it was a great conversation, and it was so nice to um feel seen. Like I know that's a cliche phrase these days, but it's true. It's like so many of the ladies in the group were feeling and experiencing a lot of the same things. And that was really nice for me to know, like on a soul level, on a mental heart soul level, like, okay, I'm not alone. Of course, that doesn't hurt. That doesn't help my bank account, but it was still really nice to know. Um, and so anyway, we were emailing back and forth, me and one of the ladies, and I said, I'm just trying to make sure that whatever I do end up offering, um, whatever I want to eliminate or trim or add or announce or whatever, I just want to make sure that it's in alignment with what I want to offer and that it's tough to figure out. Um, and because of being impatient, it's like I feel like, okay, shit or get off the pot. Like, all right, let's go. Like, hurry up, clap, 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 let's go. And, she wrote me back and she's like, I'm going to read her exact quote. She said, I'd say take your time. It's super important to make sure that you're in alignment and you have no other timeline but your own. And I thank her so much for saying that. Um, that first instinctual response to that line was like, you're totally right, but I want to get this done. I got to make money. I gotta, I want to support myself. I want to grow my business. Like, but she's right. It's like, what are these pressures we put ourselves on or put on ourselves, like who, like when we run our own business, there's no one else, which is a blessing and a curse. And it's a curse because it's like, oh my God, there's no one else. Like, holy shit, like everything is on my shoulders. But it's a blessing because it's like, oh my God, I could do whatever I want. I'm in charge. I make the decisions. I do what's right for me, my business, my clients. And that's very freeing if you look at it that way. And so I want to thank her again because I need to keep that in mind. Like, flow, not force. Um, I want to stay connected to my bigger vision, which is like, when I think about what is my core purpose, um, who am I serving? What are my guiding values and how am I going to do it? And why? Like, why am I going to do it? Um, and when I think about those things, it's like, I'm still so passionate about helping women create a business that feels like the real you so that your people can find you. So that, you 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 do the work that lights you up for the people who light you up. And that is something that has worked for me as I have grown my brand over the years. Uh, and that is kind of the overarching I guess point or mission of my business still. So my how, or sorry, so my why, my what and my why isn't changing so much, but the how might change. So, I'm not giving up on my dreams at all. It's like I'm giving myself space and I'm moving when it doesn't feel aligned anymore. You've heard me talk about persistency over consistency. Consistency is hard for me. Persistency is much easier and feels much more in alignment. I don't want to give up. I'm not giving up. Like that's been my mantra. So I'm still in it, even when it's like this quiet period that I've been in for a couple months. And so I encourage you to know that you can adjust your pace. You can take breaks. You could take sabbaticals. You can get a side hustle job and come back to this. You can figure it out. You can move forward in weird or wobbly ways. And, you know, slow is still a speed. Um, and that's what I was, kind of touching on earlier. And I want to remind you that I have it's free. I have this free little encouragement circle that I would love to welcome you into. It's called the Forward-ish Club. And it's a free newsletter. And it's also got a optional private Instagram group chat. And it's basically just gentle little check-ins every once in a while. It's encouragement. Um, and it's for business owners who still want this, even when things feel chaotic. Maybe you're feeling like things are stalled. You don't know your next step. You're crawling, you're not sprinting, Um, and I would love to welcome you into this little community. It's small but mighty. And it's just kind of to remind you that we're all in this together. And if you want to learn more about the Forward-ish Club, you can head to aliciaurvis.com/forward. And this is basically a spot where you can pledge to stay in the game, messy but moving. There's a little pledge statement that you can read and sign when you get to that page. And it's just pledging to keep showing up for your business and your people, even when things are, a little nuts, basically. Uh, and again, like, I don't have all of the answers yet. I don't have, my next steps yet, but I just wanted to come on here today and just share. I'm reflecting. I definitely feel some sort of change happening. Maybe it's the new year. Maybe it's the crazy world. Maybe it's, you know, I don't know. I just things are kind of sunsetting and then other things are starting to sprout. I guess that's how I would say it. And I want to stay connected with you guys as I go through this evolution. I want you guys with me. So if you're still in it, even in this weird season, like you belong here in the Forwardish Club. So head to aliciayurvis.com/forward. You can sign up for free. And just to wrap things up, I don't know what the next season of my business looks like yet, or my life. I've said that a couple times now on this episode, but I do know that I am listening. I am listening more closely to feel like to understand and know like what feels aligned. Um, I'm paying attention. I know something is shifting, and I wanted you to hear that from me before I start, pulling levers and deleting pages and whatever I'm going to do. But I just know we're all allowed to pause. We're all allowed to grow. We're allowed to question things. We're allowed to evolve. But I am messy but moving, one step at a time. And I would love to have you join the Forwardish Club if you'd like to be a part of it. It's free. But for those of you listening who maybe are going through something similar, um, I just want you to know that I freaking hear you. I get it. I understand. And it's okay. And there's no right or wrong answer. Um, but I know that for me to feel lit up and fulfilled in my business, it has to be about more than the paycheck. It has to be about more than the bank account. Um, Business has been very tough these last few years. Uh, but I feel most joyful and most whole and most fulfilled when I'm vibing, I'm flowing, I'm creating, I'm collaborating with my clients. And it's this, this kind of uh yeah, it's just a magical collaboration, when things are working properly. Um, and when I get to see my clients having their own transformation or my students having their own transformation, like helping them launch things, helping them grow things, design things, decide things, uh, close things, open things, build things, design things, market themselves. Even during these times when you feel like you shouldn't or it's tough. Um, I love helping women grow businesses that feel like a true extension of who they are because I believe that it brings you joy and fulfillment, um, and freedom and all of that stuff that we want. And so, yeah, that's it from me today. Just a little hello, a little quick check-in. Quick. This probably is not a quick episode. I actually don't know how long I've been talking. We'll have to see once I upload this. But anyway, say lovey. Thank you so much for being here. I have many more episodes coming. I have some in the can that I just haven't edited yet, but I just wanted to let you know that the podcast is still going strong. I'm really excited. I love this platform. I love having these conversations, and I can't wait to do more of them. So hope to see you in the Forwardish Club, aliciayurvis.com/forward, and hang in there, my friends. I support you no matter what your decisions are, and I hope to talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.